Marcus Donovan had everything anyone could dream of. A mansion nestled on the hills, luxury cars parked in his driveway, and a life filled with glamour and fame. Yet, despite the wealth and success that defined him, there was one thing he lacked: a family. Marcus had grown up in an orphanage, his parents passing away when he was just a baby. But it wasn't the absence of parents that haunted him most, it was the disappearance of his twin sister, Mia. Mia and Marcus had been inseparable as children. Their bond was unbreakable, and the world had always seen them as two halves of the same whole. But when they were just teenagers, Mia vanished without a trace. The police had no leads, and Marcus had searched for her tirelessly. Despite the passage of time, he never stopped hoping that one day, she would walk back into his life. Little did he know, that day was closer than he thought. On a cold November evening, as Marcus was returning from a high-profile business meeting, something caught his eye. A familiar figure, sitting on the curb near the alleyway just outside his mansion gates, stopped him in his tracks. It was a woman, her face hidden beneath a ragged hoodie, her figure hunched with despair. The unmistakable outline of the face caught Marcus's attention. Her skin, though weathered, was still striking. Her eyes, though dim and full of sorrow, seemed to be the same shade as his. His heart raced in his chest, his breath shallow as he slowly approached her. "Mia," he whispered, his voice shaking. "Is it really you?" The woman's head jerked up at the sound of his voice. She stared at him for a moment, as if trying to recognize him. The dirt on her face mixed with tears as she blinked. "Marcus?" she asked, her voice barely a whisper. The woman's voice sent a chill down his spine. It was her, there was no mistaking it. But this wasn't the vibrant Mia he remembered. This was someone completely different. Her once bright, energetic face was now gaunt, and her clothes were tattered, barely hanging on her frail body. The shock on Marcus's face was evident as he stared at the beggar before him, unable to comprehend the transformation that had taken place in the years she had been missing. For a moment, neither of them spoke. The world around them seemed to freeze as Marcus tried to make sense of what he was seeing. His twin sister, who had once lived a carefree, happy life, was now a broken woman, reduced to begging on the streets. Suddenly, a sharp cry broke the silence. "Please," the woman pleaded, her eyes desperate. "I don't want your money. I need to know where I am." Marcus's heart dropped. "You're home, Mia. You're safe now," he said, his voice thick with emotion. But instead of the reunion he had always dreamed of, a cold, bitter laugh escaped Mia's lips. "Safe?" she spat, her voice sharp with bitterness. "You have no idea what I've been through." Marcus reached out to her, trying to steady her shaking hands. "We need to get you inside, Mia. You're freezing. Let me help you." Mia pulled back, her face contorted with anger. "You think you can just take me in after all these years? After everything I've seen, everything I've suffered? It doesn't work like that." Marcus was stunned. This wasn't the reunion he had imagined. He had expected tears of joy, an embrace, perhaps even some questions about where she had been. But Mia seemed to resent him, her eyes filled with both pain and something darker, resentment. "Come on, Mia," Marcus urged, trying to gently take her arm. "You don't have to fight this. We'll figure everything out. But first, let's get you some food and a warm bed." Mia's eyes hardened, and she yanked her arm away. "I don't need your charity, Marcus. I didn't need you then, and I don't need you now." Marcus recoiled as if slapped. This wasn't the sister he remembered. The Mia he had loved so deeply, the one who had always been by his side, was gone, replaced by someone angry, broken, and distrustful. Before he could speak, Mia turned and staggered away, her thin body swaying unsteadily. "Mia, wait!" Marcus called, his voice cracking. She didn't stop. As he stood there, watching his twin disappear into the night, Marcus was left standing at the edge of his world, his twin sister lost to him once again. But this time, it wasn't just the disappearance that hurt, it was the person Mia had become. He stood there, frozen, the weight of her rejection heavy on his heart. How had it come to this? What had happened to Mia during those lost years? And why was she so angry with him? Marcus had so many questions, and no answers. But one thing was clear, his sister needed help. And Marcus wasn't going to give up on her, no matter how broken she had become. Little did he know, the truth of what had happened to Mia was far darker than he could ever have imagined. Marcus couldn't shake the image of Mia walking away, her frail form disappearing into the darkness. But as he turned back toward his mansion, he saw something in the distance, a shadow moving fast toward him, someone who had been watching their encounter. Who was it? And what did they want with Mia? The next morning, Marcus could not shake off the haunting image of his sister walking away from him the night before. His mind raced with questions, but there were no answers, only silence. The mansion, which usually felt like a sanctuary, felt cold and empty. Every step he took echoed through the grand hall, as if the house itself was grieving with him. Marcus had always been used to being alone. He had built his empire from the ground up, never once relying on anyone. But Mia had been his family. His other half. And now, she was a ghost, lost in a world of bitterness and despair. He had always thought that if he found her again, they could heal together. But now, he wasn't so sure. His thoughts were interrupted by the sound of his phone ringing. It was an unfamiliar number, but something in Marcus's gut told him this call was important. He answered immediately. "Mr. Donovan," a cold, professional voice said on the other end. "Yes," Marcus replied, his pulse quickening. "Who is this?" "My name is Detective Lauren Chase. I'm working on the case of your sister, Mia Donovan." Marcus's heart skipped a beat. "What do you mean, working on the case?" "She's alive, she was just outside my house last night." There was a pause on the other end. "Mr. Donovan, I need you to listen carefully. Your sister is not the person you think she is. We have reason to believe that her disappearance was not a simple case of running away. There's more to it, something much darker. I need to meet with you immediately." The word sent a chill down Marcus's spine. What could be darker than what he had already witnessed? What could have happened to Mia in the years she had been missing? "I'll be there," he said, his voice firm. The detective's office was tucked away in a quiet part of town, far from the hustle of the city. Marcus arrived at the building and was quickly ushered into a sterile, dimly lit room. Detective Chase was sitting behind a metal desk, papers scattered in front of her, her expression serious. "Please, take a seat," she said, motioning toward the chair across from her. Marcus sat down, his mind racing. "What's going on, Detective? What do you mean Mia isn't who I think she is?" Chase exhaled sharply, her gaze fixed on the papers in front of her. "Your sister, Mia, was involved in something much bigger than you realize. We've been tracking her movements for the last few months, but our investigation started long before that. We've discovered that Mia was part of a dangerous underground network, a trafficking ring that was operating right under your nose." Marcus felt like the ground had been pulled out from under him. "No. That's impossible. Mia would never." "I know this is hard to hear," the detective interrupted, "but the evidence is undeniable. Mia was taken, forced into the network. She didn't run away. She was taken against her will. And now, she's tangled in a web of violence and deceit. She's been used by some very dangerous people, Marcus. People who won't hesitate to hurt her again if they think she's turned on them." Marcus's heart pounded in his chest. His sister, his twin, had been forced into a nightmare, and he had no idea. All these years, he had assumed she was lost, perhaps running away from him, maybe making bad decisions. But now, everything was falling apart. The sister he remembered, fun, strong, and full of life, was gone. And in her place was a woman who had been broken, manipulated, and used. Where is she now? Marcus asked, his voice trembling with urgency. I need to get her out of there. I'll do anything to help her. Detective Chase leaned forward, her eyes locking with his. We're trying to track down the people who've been holding her. They've been keeping her hidden for years, but we believe she's been left behind, discarded like an object once they were done using her. Marcus clenched his fists, his anger rising. Who are they? What do they want with Mia? They want control, Chase said quietly. Control over people like your sister, those who are vulnerable. And they'll do anything to get it. We believe Mia's disappearance wasn't just about her. She was a pawn in a much larger game. Marcus felt like the walls were closing in on him. He had spent all these years in the dark, believing his sister had disappeared by choice. But now, the truth was far more twisted than he could have ever imagined. Chase slid a manila folder across the table to him. This is the last known information we have on her location. We think she's hiding somewhere in the city. We've got a lead, but it's not concrete. Marcus opened the folder, scanning through the documents, his heart sinking further with each line. There were photos of Mia. She looked nothing like the woman he remembered. She was gaunt, disheveled, and her eyes held a sadness that he couldn't fathom. I'll find her, Marcus said, his voice filled with determination. I won't let them use her any longer. As Marcus left the detective's office, a new realization hit him like a freight train. The people who had taken Mia were not just dangerous, they were connected to someone powerful. Someone who had the ability to make this whole nightmare disappear with a snap of their fingers. And that person? They were closer to Marcus than he ever thought. The question was, how much was Marcus willing to risk to save Mia? Was he prepared to face a threat that could destroy everything he had built? Marcus didn't sleep that night. His mind was consumed with thoughts of Mia, the woman she had become, and the powerful people who were behind her suffering. The detective's words echoed in his head, they're connected to someone powerful. Someone who could make this whole nightmare disappear with a snap of their fingers. As the morning sun rose, casting long shadows through the windows of his mansion, Marcus knew he had to act fast. The stakes were higher than he had ever imagined. He wasn't just up against criminals, he was up against an enemy with power that could reach deep into the fabric of society. And the worst part? That enemy was hiding in plain sight. Marcus had no idea who it was yet, but he had a feeling that he was much closer to this enemy than he realized. The wealthy, influential people he had spent years building connections with, they all had their secrets, their skeletons in the closet. Could one of them be involved in Mia's disappearance? After a long, sleepless night, Marcus met with Detective Chase again, this time at a safe house, a nondescript building on the outskirts of the city. He could tell the detective was on edge, and the tension was palpable. Marcus, I need you to be careful, Chase said, her voice grave. These people, whoever they are, aren't just going to let Mia go. You'll be putting yourself in the line of fire. We're not just talking about petty criminals here. These are people with serious connections. If you get too close, they'll come after you, too. Marcus didn't flinch. He was already in too deep. I'm not afraid of them, he said, his voice cold. I will do whatever it takes to bring Mia back. She's my sister. My family. I don't care who I have to face. I'll stop at nothing. Chase nodded slowly. I know you're determined, but you need to understand that this isn't going to be easy. I've been in this business long enough to know how these networks operate. People disappear, and sometimes they stay gone forever. But Mia isn't just a victim, she's a key player in whatever game these people are playing. And they'll do anything to make sure she doesn't talk. Marcus clenched his jaw. What do you need from me? We have a lead, Chase said, pulling out a small folder. There's a man named Ivan Corbin. He's one of the key figures behind this trafficking ring. He's known for pulling strings behind the scenes, keeping a low profile, but he's linked to Mia's case. We believe he's the one who has been hiding her all these years. Where do we find him? Marcus asked, his voice sharp with urgency. We're still tracking him, Chase replied. But I've got a contact who can help. Her name is Sarah Torres. She works in the underground network, on the opposite side of the law, but she's been known to help us out when the time's right. If we can find her, she might be able to give us more information on Corbin's whereabouts. Marcus didn't hesitate. Let's go find her. The search for Sarah Torres led them to an abandoned warehouse in the heart of the city's industrial district. It was an area that had long been forgotten, where once thriving businesses now sat empty and crumbling. As they approached the warehouse, Marcus couldn't shake the feeling that they were being watched. The air was thick with tension, and the hairs on the back of his neck stood up. It felt like a trap. Chase noticed the unease on Marcus's face. Stay sharp, she whispered. This could be a setup. We don't know who we can trust. The door to the warehouse creaked as they pushed it open, revealing a dark, cavernous space filled with old crates and rusted machinery. The only sound was the echo of their footsteps as they cautiously made their way inside. Sarah. Chase called out, her voice cutting through the silence. Sarah Torres, are you here? A shadow shifted in the corner of the warehouse. A woman stepped forward, her figure tall and lean, her face hidden beneath a hood. She didn't speak at first, but her cold eyes locked onto Marcus's, studying him intently. After a long pause, she finally spoke. I'm here, she said, her voice low and gravelly. You must be Marcus Donovan. The one looking for Mia. Marcus nodded, his heart racing. Where is she? Do you know where Mia is? Please, we need to find her. Sarah took a step closer, her gaze moving between Marcus and Chase. Mia's not who you think she is, she said, her tone heavy with the weight of what she was about to reveal. She's been part of this network for years. But it's not just about trafficking people, it's about power. The kind of power that can control lives, ruin families, and erase people from existence without a trace. Who's behind it? Marcus demanded. Who's pulling the strings? Sarah hesitated, her eyes flickering with uncertainty. I can't tell you everything, she said softly. But I'll tell you this, you're not safe. There's someone in your life, Marcus. Someone close to you. Someone who's been watching you this entire time. They've been pulling the strings, making sure Mia stayed hidden. And if you keep digging, they'll make sure you disappear too. Marcus felt a cold chill run down his spine. Someone close to him. Who could it be? He had no idea who could be involved, but the thought of betrayal, of someone he trusted being the enemy, was enough to freeze him in place. Before he could respond, Sarah turned, disappearing back into the shadows of the warehouse. Find the truth, she said cryptically. But be ready for the consequences. You've been warned. As Marcus stood there, his mind reeling from the cryptic warning, a sudden realization hit him like a ton of bricks. The person who had been watching him, could it be someone he had trusted all along? Could the very people he had relied on for years be the ones orchestrating this nightmare? His thoughts swirled with confusion and fear, and in that moment, he knew, he was not just fighting for Mia's freedom. He was fighting for his life. The night was silent, but Marcus's mind was far from calm. As the hours stretched on, he found himself pacing in his mansion, his thoughts a whirlwind of confusion, fear, and anger. Sarah Torres's words haunted him, someone close to you. Someone who's been watching you this entire time. He couldn't shake the feeling that he was being pulled into a web of deception. His entire world, built on trust and success, was crumbling before his eyes. The question of who was behind Mia's suffering lingered in his mind. Someone close to him, someone he trusted. But who? He had always been careful, always surrounded himself with people who shared his values. He trusted his employees, his partners, even his friends. But now, everything was in question. He thought back to the people in his life, his business partner, Jason Hayes, who had been with him since the beginning. Jason had always been loyal, or so it seemed. Then there was Emily, his personal assistant, who had been by his side for years. She was diligent, always on top of things, and seemed to understand his every need. And there was also Rachel, a longtime family friend, who had grown close to him over the years. But could any of them be the one who had been secretly pulling the strings behind the scenes? Marcus's thoughts were interrupted by the sound of his phone ringing. It was Detective Chase. He picked up immediately. "Marcus, you need to come to the police station now. It's about Mia." His heart skipped a beat. "What's happened?" "We have new information," Chase said, her voice tight. "We've been tracking Ivan Corbin's movements, and we've just uncovered something that ties him directly to someone in your inner circle. We need to meet." Without hesitation, Marcus rushed to the station, his stomach tight with dread. He didn't know what to expect, but he could feel that the walls were closing in. When he arrived, Detective Chase was waiting for him in the interrogation room. She looked up from the documents in front of her as he entered, her expression grim. "Sit down, Marcus," she said, her voice low. "I don't know how to say this, but we've made a breakthrough in the investigation. We've linked Ivan Corbin to one of your closest associates." Marcus's pulse quickened. "Who?" "It's Jason Hayes," Chase said, her voice calm but filled with the weight of her words. "Your business partner. He's been working with Corbin and is directly involved in the trafficking network." Marcus felt the world tilt beneath him. Jason? His trusted partner, the man he had built his empire with? "That's impossible," he whispered, shaking his head. "Jason would never. He's like a brother to me." "I wish I could tell you that this is some kind of mistake," Chase said, her eyes locked on his. "But we have proof. Financial records, communication logs, and even a direct connection to Corbin. Jason has been feeding him information, using your business as a cover to funnel money to the network." Marcus could barely process the words. No, this can't be true." "I'm sorry, Marcus," Chase continued. "But the evidence is irrefutable. Jason's involvement goes deeper than you think. He's not just a bystander. He's one of the main players in this operation." The words felt like a punch to his gut. Jason had been by his side for years, through thick and thin. They had celebrated successes, mourned losses, and built something together. And now, Marcus was being told that Jason had been working with the very people who had hurt Mia. The betrayal felt like a weight pressing down on his chest. "Why would he do this?" Marcus asked, his voice barely audible. Chase shook her head. "I don't know. But I think it's time you confront him. He's been playing both sides for far too long." Marcus knew what he had to do. The anger and betrayal burning inside him gave him the strength to make the difficult decision. He had to confront Jason. The man who had once been his closest ally was now the one responsible for tearing his world apart. He drove to Jason's house in a daze, his thoughts a blur. The mansion, once a place of comfort, now felt like a prison. He parked outside, his hands shaking as he gripped the steering wheel. He knew this moment would change everything, one way or another. As he walked up the driveway, Marcus saw Jason's silhouette through the window. His heart pounded in his chest as he knocked on the door. Jason opened it, his face lighting up when he saw Marcus. "Marcus. What's going on, man? I haven't heard from you in a while. You okay?" But Marcus wasn't in the mood for pleasantries. His eyes locked onto Jason's, and he could see the flicker of uncertainty in his friend's gaze. "We need to talk," Marcus said, his voice low but firm. Jason's smile faltered, and he stepped back, allowing Marcus into the house. As they sat down in the living room, Marcus wasted no time. "I know everything, Jason," he said, his voice cold. "About you and Ivan Corbin. About what you've been doing behind my back." Jason's face went pale. "What? What are you talking about?" "I know about the trafficking ring. I know you've been working with Corbin. And I know you've been using our business to cover it up, Marcus continued, his words cutting through the silence like a knife. Jason's face twisted in panic, and he tried to defend himself. Marcus, you've got it all wrong. This isn't what you think. But Marcus wasn't listening anymore. The truth had already sunk in. The betrayal was too deep, too personal. How long, Jason? Marcus asked, his voice breaking. How long have you been doing this to me? To Mia? Jason's eyes darted around, desperate for a way out. I didn't want any of this to happen. It wasn't supposed to go this far. But Corbin, he had dirt on me. He threatened to ruin everything if I didn't comply. I had no choice. Marcus stood up abruptly. You had no choice, he repeated, his voice shaking with fury. You think I had a choice when I watched my sister suffer? You think she had a choice when she was taken from me? No, Jason. You chose this. Jason's expression crumbled, and for the first time, Marcus saw a glimpse of guilt in his eyes. But it was too late for apologies. Too late for excuses. Marcus's heart raced as he stared at Jason, the man who had once been his brother. But as Jason opened his mouth to explain further, the sound of a car engine roaring outside interrupted them. Both men turned toward the window, and what they saw sent Marcus's blood running cold. A black SUV had just pulled up, its tinted windows hiding the people inside. And as Marcus stared at the vehicle, a sickening thought crossed his mind: Jason's betrayal was just the beginning. Whoever was in that car had no intention of letting Marcus or Mia walk away unscathed. Marcus's heart pounded as he watched the black SUV roll to a stop outside Jason's mansion. The vehicle's tinted windows gave no clue as to who was inside, but Marcus felt a shiver run down his spine. The sudden appearance of the SUV wasn't a coincidence. Whoever it was, they were here for something, and he had no doubt that it had to do with Mia and the terrifying truth that Jason had been hiding. Jason, now looking more fearful than Marcus had ever seen him, stood up abruptly. We need to get out of here, now, he said, his voice trembling. Marcus's gaze locked onto his former business partner, and for a moment, he considered the gravity of the situation. Jason, the man who had been by his side for years, was now nothing more than a pawn in a much bigger game. But in that moment, Marcus couldn't afford to waste any more time. There was no more room for hesitation. Mia was out there, broken, lost, and the time for waiting was over. Who's in the car, Jason? Marcus demanded, his voice low and filled with cold fury. Jason didn't respond immediately. He looked over at the SUV, then back at Marcus, his eyes filled with shame and fear. I can't tell you everything, he stammered. But they've been following me for weeks. It's not just Corbin, there's someone else. Someone higher up. I've been trying to get out of this, but they won't let me. The sound of a door slamming shut outside broke their conversation. Marcus turned to look out the window, and his blood ran cold as he saw two men emerge from the SUV. They were dressed in black suits, their faces expressionless. They moved with the efficiency of well-trained operatives, calculating, purposeful. Marcus didn't recognize them, but he could tell from the way they moved that they weren't amateurs. We need to go, now. Jason hissed, his voice desperate. But Marcus couldn't move. He was paralyzed by the sudden realization that the battle he thought he was fighting wasn't just about saving Mia anymore. This was bigger. The people who had taken his sister, the people who had used Jason, were playing a game with far-reaching consequences. And now, they had found him. Before Jason could say anything else, one of the men in the suits knocked on the door, his sharp rap cutting through the tension in the room. Marcus's pulse raced. This was it. The moment he had feared. The moment where everything he had built, his family, his business, his life, would come crashing down. Don't answer it, Marcus whispered to Jason, his voice steady despite the chaos building inside him. Jason looked at him, confused and scared. What do we do? Marcus's mind raced, his thoughts bouncing from one option to the next. He could try to run, but he knew it wouldn't matter. They had him cornered. The only way out now was to face the truth head-on. Marcus turned toward the door. He could hear the men on the other side, their voices muffled but unmistakable. They were waiting for him. "I'm going to face them," Marcus said quietly. "You stay here. I'll handle this." Jason's eyes widened in panic. "You can't, Marcus, don't be a hero. This is bigger than us. They'll kill you." "I'm not going to die," Marcus replied firmly. "Not without a fight." The door creaked open, and the two men stepped inside. Their eyes scanned the room quickly before locking onto Marcus. They were cold, calculating, men who had seen and done things that Marcus couldn't even imagine. "Marcus Donovan," one of the men said, his voice low and controlled. "You've been digging where you shouldn't. It's time to stop." Marcus stood tall, refusing to back down. "Who are you?" he asked, his voice steady. "And what do you want with my sister?" The man smiled coldly, revealing a set of teeth that seemed almost too perfect. "We're not here for your sister anymore. She's a lost cause. But you're a different matter entirely." The other man stepped forward, a faint smirk playing at the corner of his lips. "You've crossed a line, Marcus. You should have stayed out of this. But now, you're involved. And we can't let you walk away from it." Marcus took a deep breath, summoning every ounce of courage he had left. "If you think I'm going to back down, you're wrong," he said, his voice cold and unwavering. "I'm going to find my sister, and I'll make sure you all pay for what you've done." The men exchanged a brief glance, then nodded. Without warning, the first man lunged at Marcus, grabbing him by the collar and slamming him against the wall. The force of the impact rattled Marcus's brain, but he didn't let himself falter. This was it, the moment he had been preparing for, whether he was ready or not. With a sharp twist, Marcus broke free, using his weight to throw the man off balance. He moved quickly, his body reacting instinctively as he grabbed a nearby chair and swung it at the second man. The blow landed hard, sending the man crashing to the floor. The first man lunged again, but Marcus was faster. He kicked the man's legs out from under him, sending him sprawling to the ground. Marcus stood over him, his chest heaving with adrenaline. "Who sent you?" Marcus demanded, his voice low and filled with fury. The man on the ground didn't respond at first, but then he smirked, his eyes filled with dark amusement. "You really don't get it, do you? This isn't about you. It's about control. You're just a pawn. All of you are." Marcus's mind raced. He had known the stakes were high, but this was bigger than anything he had imagined. These men weren't just criminals. They were part of a larger, more dangerous network, one that had the power to manipulate everything in his life. His wealth, his family, his sister, they were all pawns in a game that Marcus didn't fully understand. But one thing was clear now, this wasn't just about saving Mia. It was about exposing the entire operation. And if that meant taking down everyone involved, then so be it. As Marcus stood there, his body still trembling from the fight, he heard a faint noise, a low hum coming from outside the house. He turned toward the window, his blood running cold as he saw the familiar black SUV parked outside, the tinted windows revealing nothing. But there was something different about this time. This time, the vehicle wasn't just waiting. This time, it was sending a message: "You can't hide, Marcus." And before he could react, a shadowy figure stepped out of the SUV, a person he thought he would never see again. If you like this story, comment, share and subscribe to our channel for more interesting stories.